I'm J. Rachel Editon.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of comics' greatest superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Jay and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
This week, we've got the books of August 24th and 31st, 2016. We're folding 2 weeks together. Also coming up, and if you're not sick of us talking about it, and even if you are, we've got Rose City Comic-Con. That is going to be August 11th and 12th in Portland, Oregon. We will be tabling there. We've got a live show at noon on Saturday, as well as a party Saturday night. I've got panels all weekend, and we'll be tabling with Al Ewing at booth 815 all day Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, come see us. Buy things from us if you would like, but you should give us high fives regardless, because we like you and we like high fives, and it'll be awesome.
Hey! But first, let's review some comics.
First, from last week, we have Extraordinary X-Men number 13, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Victor Ibáñez and colors by J. David Ramos. Yes, Apocalypse Wars are over in all of our books, and we're now coming back to sort of the main storyline. And I gotta say, this issue handles that really well. I think for the first time in this entire series, this feels in some ways like old X-Men. There are a lot of plates spinning in the air. There are plot threads left over from big events that have happened in a couple of previous arcs. Everything's kind of starting to come together. The team members are all doing their own thing, but they're actually feeling like a team. For me, I think this is actually one of my favorite issues of Extraordinary so far, and one that gives me a lot of hope for the book going forward.
I am particularly excited to see Ibáñez taking over on art. Now, do we know if he's the new ongoing artist? Because Ramos is going over to Champions.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know this book and Uncanny have both alternated artists for many of their story arcs. That does seem to be pretty standard for especially the books that come out more frequently in Marvel.
Yeah.
I like Ramos, but I really like Ibáñez. I at least first discovered Victor Ibáñez on the Storm ongoing. And that was stellar, and Ibáñez's work here is also stellar. He actually draws faces that look like the individual characters. I mean, you see some of that in comics. You see a fair bit of it, actually. But, like, for instance, his Illyana doesn't look like anybody else. She just looks like an Illyana Rasputin that follows from the versions of the character we've seen other artists do, but who also looks completely distinct from anybody else in this story and emotes the hell out of every panel that she's in.
Yeah, he is spectacular at facial expressions and body language. And one of the things that I think, one of the ways in which I think he stands out among contemporary superhero artists is that he has no compunction about showing women looking angry.
Yes, absolutely.
Like genuinely, and about expressiveness taking precedence over prettiness in women's faces, which is really neat and really rare.
It's damn refreshing to see, agreed. So yeah, plot-wise we have, like I said, a number of plates spinning in the air. It's a really weird turn of phrase. Do people spin plates a lot?
I mean, it's an acrobat thing.
Do acrobats spin plates a lot? I guess I haven't hung out with a lot of acrobats. At least not while they were spinning plates. Well, anyway, regardless, we have Colossus still as a horseman of Apocalypse. We have Apocalypse imprisoned at X-Haven. We have Magik going through space and time, trying to find her lost ward Sapna, who may be destined to end the world. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here, both in terms of mutant affairs and superhero, supervillain stuff and mystical stuff, and I really enjoy seeing that. I also really love seeing Storm going with Magik on this trip, because everyone forgets. I mean, they even forgot back in the 80s. Those characters have a ton of history. I mean, okay, it was alternate universe.
One
Storm.
of them has history with the other, but
yes.
It's not reciprocal history.
True. And I don't know if that's going to be explored too much, but it's still a really cool thing to see. Other character dynamics, the Iceman Nightcrawler dynamic in this issue is fascinating. We have, of course, a much darker Nightcrawler these days after the weird stuff he went through at the beginning of the series, and Iceman trying to sort of talk him down and bring him back to who he used to be is great to see.
Yeah, Iceman as the heart and moral compass of the X-Men is something that I pretty much never get tired of. I hate his current costume.
That
so
gorget
much.
thing is weird, but Nightcrawler's costume is
It's like
awesome.
the worst wetsuit. Nightcrawler's costume is great. Nightcrawler's costume works really, really well.
I also like his angst beard. It's a good angst beard.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, it's a real solid issue. I mean, we also have some good soap opera stuff with, Forge bickering with Jean and Logan and everybody. I don't know, like that kind of soap opera drama behind all the superhero stuff has always been very X-Men for me, and so this book just seems to fire on a lot of the cylinders for what I want an X book to be, and it really pleases me. Is it perfect? No, not at all. But it's solid, and it makes me really happy as an X-fan.
Now we're on to this week's books, starting with All New Wolverine Annual Number 1, written by Tom Taylor with art by Marcio Takara and colors by Matt Lopez. I recognize that I start pretty much every review of a book in this series with, God, I love this book, but God, I love this book.
You're not wrong.
I am not wrong. And this annual is lovely, and this annual just crystallizes a lot of what I love about this book. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's true to the characters, it's interesting. It's a great spotlight for Takara's art, and especially an aspect of it that we've called out before, I think, as exemplary, which is his use of body language. This is a fun standalone issue. It takes place before the most recent issue of All New Wolverine, which is really important.
Which means it's this really light one-shot that's a lot of fun to read, and you're smiling the whole time. And then occasionally you remember, oh, right, the last issue of the ongoing that takes place after this had this horrible cliffhanger that has me, like, tearing out my hair in concern and worry. Ugh,
but
jerks.
Miles, Jonathan in a superhero costume.
Jonathan the Wolverine does get a superhero costume.
Jonathan and Gabby are so completely my bro TP.
That's legit.
I love them dearly. Marvel, hire me to write a one-shot about them, and Meredith McLaren to draw it, and then we can just have a monopoly on small, adorable carnivores in superhero costumes.
I like this plan.
Well, because there's one in our Sorcery 101 story.
Okay, well, perfect. There can be a cross-publisher team-up. Excellent. I missed the Hell Wolf puppy from the New Mutants Journey to Mystery Exiles crossover that Warlock secretly took in.
Yes.
That was really awesome.
What happened to it?
It got casually forgotten, unfortunately. Yeah.
Man.
Warlock showed up in All New X Factor and no wolf puppy to be seen.
Do you think there are Hellhound breed rescues?
Presumably. I used to volunteer at a wolf dog rescue sanctuary, and I didn't ever see any Hellhound wolf puppies there, but there probably were one or two.
Anyway, speaking of dangerous carnivores, back to All New Wolverine. I think I mentioned that this is a body swap story. Mm-hmm. And Takara shines so exquisitely here. We've talked before about how great he is with body language. And in this case, Actually, I'm going to tangent to another medium. This is a very tangenty review, but I don't care. So one of my very, very favorite episodes of the generally superlative Justice League Unlimited cartoon is The Great Brain Robbery, which is another body swap story. That one featuring Lex Luthor and Flash, Wally West. And one of the things I enjoy most about it is listening to the voice actors do each other's voices, each other's inflection. Because it's still the actors who voice those characters. They're just using each other's speech patterns. Mm-hmm. And it's delightful and it's really funny. And you can't do that in a comic. I mean, you can do it in the dialogue, but you can't do it in delivery. You can do it in body language. And Takara does it so well. He does it in the fight scenes. He does it in terms of superpowers, but he also just does it in casual scenes, in characters, the way they sit, the way they enter a room. You can tell who's who. And
especially with the characters who are swapped here, Wolverine and Spider-Gwen. Spider-Gwen's great, by the way. I haven't read her stuff. Apparently I need to.
Oh, yeah, no, she's terrific.
Yeah. They're just so different from one another, from the very serious, squarely face the camera Wolverine to the more, agile, lithe, sort of twitchy Spider-Gwen. It works well.
And both of their powers are very dependent on being used to those powers. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of quirks. As Spider-Gwen learns immediately and to her intense detriment, and then again somewhat more vividly toward the end, in a scene that doesn't actually, a moment that does not actually appear on the page, which I really appreciated. It's a great example of having a really off-color kind of gory gag without actually having on page, blood and gore.
Healing factors also make that work a lot better when you realize that the terrible carnage being implied is probably going to be fine.
Yeah. It's definitely funnier when a character in Wolverine's body accidentally stabs themselves in the head. It kind of reminds me of that horrible gag from Wolverine's with if Wolverine popped his claws like this.
Oh, when he was drunk and his claws came through his palms?
Yeah, except that was very graphic. And this is absolutely not. This is the reverse of graphic. This is not pictured.
Yes, but it's so much fun. One of the things I liked that I wanted to talk about was the antagonist, Red Hornet.
Oh, yeah, she was great.
She was great, and what I like about it is it's a very lighthearted issue. This one is. Mm-hmm. But sort of the reason behind everything happening comes directly from some very dark stuff from Logan's life and Logan's actions. The idea of Laura as her own character, yes, but somebody who has picked up a mantle of somebody who handled things a little bit differently. It's cool to see that.
And with it has inherited vendettas.
Yeah.
And if you look at the supervillain trope of, sequestering yourself away for years to work on your revenge, well, sometimes someone passes on an identity and you get the wrong Wolverine.
It's true.
And to her credit, Red Hornet?
Red Hornet, yeah.
Red Hornet is fairly gracious about that. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a really fun issue. If you have not been following the series, it stands alone beautifully, I think. It's very accessible. Really, all of the backstory you need is in the first two captions, namely that Gabby's a clone of Laura and Jonathan is an actual Wolverine. Mm-hmm. And everything else is included in the story. It's great. It's got a great cover. Oh my God. It's got several great variant covers too, but the one we have is specifically everyone in sunglasses doing Reservoir Dogs. So, Reservoir Wolverines?
Reservoir Wolverines, yeah, I like that. Next up is X-Men 92 number 6, written by Chad Bowers and Chris Sims, with art by Alti Fermancia, and colors by Matt Milla and Dano Sanchez Almara. So yes, X-Men 92, it continues to do what it does best, which is to cram in all of the continuity references it possibly could, be kind of ridiculous, and go in increasingly unexpected directions. So this issue takes place during Lilapalooza, which may be one of my favorite X-Men related verbal, wordplay ever.
Also one of the fictional events that I most resent not actually taking place in the real world.
Seriously.
So that I can attend it. Although it does feature several real world bands, because there is nothing as early 90s as band cameos.
And also nothing as early 90s as the Toadies doing, Possum Kingdom? It's as 90s as can possibly be. It's pretty wonderful.
It's very, very 90s. Although it does a great job of something that this book's been doing consistently, which is pulling later characters back to that sensibility. In this case, one of my very favorite characters.
Yes, Abigail Brand of Sword is here, and she kind of already was 90s. She's an always prepared hard ass with giant guns and a bad attitude. It works really well.
Yeah. I really like her.
Yes, and it's a really silly premise in this issue. There's Lilapalooza, a big concert, which in theory is to, help with mutant-human relations, but really is just an excuse to see the X-Men working security for a giant concert. I especially enjoyed Bishop just being, way too serious about the whole thing and being super resentful that the, legendary, wonderful heroes that he remembered hearing about in the future were really just kind of ridiculous. And I love that Wolverine has a lot of fun kind of messing with him over this fact.
So Fermancia didn't draw 5. That was a fill-in artist. And I'm so glad to see her back. And one of the reasons I am gladdest to see her back is that her Wolverine facial expressions are the best Wolverine facial expressions. I would buy a comic book that was 22 pages of just a grid of Alti Fermancia drawing Wolverine looking disgruntled.
That would be pretty wonderful.
Different gradations on that. It's just, yeah. No one else has ever done this well.
So speaking of things I would not think anyone else would have done, freaking Death's Head comes back. Do you guys remember Death's Head? Because most people don't.
I don't.
Well, there you go. No, so my first exposure to Death's Head was actually the Death's Head 2 trading card in the Marvel Universe Series 4 trading card set. They did these 3x3 grids, so you could, put your cards in a binder and the pictures would all line up.
Which we did. We have those.
We have those, yeah. And there's a Marvel UK page, including Death's Head 2, and it's also got Motormouth and a bunch of other characters. So that was just me getting those cards as a kid, being I have no idea what's happening here, but these designs are amazing. And so, yes, that happens. It's a really ridiculous issue with tons of little nods to deep continuity. Fabian Cortez just randomly shows up to do some stuff.
Well, we've seen the upstarts before.
Well, we have, but I like that
they've tied in previously in this.
I like that he just attacks everyone at Lilapalooza, because this is the logic of X-Men 92. Everything focuses on whatever's going on in that issue.
I also like that we've now got an arc with Lila on the team that we're coming into. Because,
always happy to see more of her.
Yes.
So, we'll see. This book, I'm not sure if this book can sustain the sort of premise/gimmick that it's built on indefinitely. For right now, I think it's absolutely doing it. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm curious. Well, okay, space,
we know exactly where it's going to go.
Because, there's the last page reveal that's a lot of fun. But, fun stuff. You probably, if you've been following it, you know by now whether or not you like this book. We do. Hopefully you do as well.
Finally, we've got Deadpool v. Gambit number 4, written by Benz, Acker, and Blacker, with art by Daniela Bayruth and colors by Chris Peter. And this is the issue where we learned that while we enjoy the series immensely when it features its 2 eponymous protagonists, we also like it a good deal when it doesn't. Because this issue is all about Scrambler.
I was not expecting anything about this issue at all. This surprised me in every possible way. Scrambler. Who focuses on Scrambler? Nobody until now. That's who.
I would.
Ever. Well, you would.
I love Scrambler. Scrambler is my very favorite Marauder. Because, there are all of these big, angry, badass Marauders. And then there's this little chill dude who looks like the Exchange Marauder from freaking Riverdale. Mm-hmm. And that's Scrambler. And I love him.
Yeah, and apparently he's an awesome, sympathetic, fascinating character that you're really rooting for.
Yeah,
This entire issue is just sort of his story trying to get out of being a supervillain and getting sort of pulled back in, and Deadpool and Gambit, doing their part to screw up his life without really thinking about the consequences. And, I really care about Scrambler's past, present, and future now.
The other thing that we get in this, it's not just an aside, although it's largely one, is we get a reveal of the true identity of the villain.
That's another thing I was not expecting, and that just takes the stakes from like here to like here in this
It's a great twist, though. It's very much the Flannery O'Connor, totally unexpected, totally inevitable in retrospect.
Now I'm just imagining Flannery O'Connor writing Deadpool and Gambit.
There would be so many more religious allegories, and no one would ever be happy.
That's true.
But I'm really glad she doesn't, because Acker and Blacker are doing a lovely job.
They are, yeah.
Scrambler, man.
Scrambler, I know. But no, seriously, Jay, you mentioned that Deadpool and Gambit aren't really in the book, and they're seriously in the book for like a couple of pages. So one thing that interested me about this issue, sometimes you'll have an ongoing series where it'll just, take a break after like 15 issues and focus on a side character for an issue, and it'll be kind of a weird thing. Like, that episode of Babylon 5 or the one in Star Trek where it focuses on just like random minor characters who are in the background in previous episodes.
That is much rarer in a miniseries.
That's the thing. It's a 5-issue miniseries, and of the 4 issues we've gotten so far, only 2 of them were like the standard story. And that's a really brave, strange thing to do for a miniseries, and I kind of love it.
I think it's kind of an essential thing to do for this miniseries, because Gambit and Deadpool are both characters for whom a very little bit goes a very, very long way. And making them work well, and making them work well together, I think takes kind of pacing them out, giving us glimpses into other stuff, seeing the rolling repercussions of the general chaos that they set off. And yeah, this is fun, and it's very much in the tone and spirit of the series. I think starting with someone else, starting with the way the first issue did, created a window for tangents that would have felt out of place otherwise, but here feel totally in keeping with the tone and pace of the series.
So there's one issue left after this. Where is this series going to go at this point? Like, now we know who the big villain is, but like beyond that, like what's going to happen? Is Scrambler going to factor in, or was this just his little focal thing? I don't know.
I hope he doesn't, because if anyone deserves a happily ever after, or if there's anyone I want to have a happily ever after, it is Scrambler.
Even if he makes some very bad decisions sometimes.
Yeah, but he owns them, and he acknowledges them, and he does his best to turn his life around without ever denying what he did or demanding forgiveness, and I really respect that.
So 2 weeks, 4 issues, there we go. Jay, what's our favorite?
Well, our pick of the fortnight, and I love it when we do reviews every 2 weeks, so I get to say that. Our pick of the fortnight is All New Wolverine Annual #1, because it's delightful and it includes a Wolverine in a little superhero mask. Our needs are simple. Miles, what's our panel?
I just want to point out that Fortnight always makes me think of a really weird night at a dance club where everyone just brings little cardboard castles with them and sits there, or maybe builds them out of like couch cushions.
Yes. Oh, I would go to that night.
I would go to that night too. There would still be like the Oons Oons rave music. It would just be couch cushions and people.
But you wouldn't. It would be muffled because you'd be in your pillow fort.
That sounds very soothing, actually.
Doesn't it? You want to build one when we get home?
Maybe, yeah.
We could just do video reviews from a pillow fort every week.
I feel like the lighting would be terrible.
I could just live in a pillow fort.
You could.
Well, we made the one with the lamps when we did the community marathon.
Oh yeah, and blankets and like that was good times.
It was good. That was a well lit fort.
It was. It's true. Anyway, panel of the week. We digress. Is also from All New Wolverine, and it's one of the things we were talking about with Gwen and Laura having such themselves body language in one another's bodies. This is Spider-Gwen in Wolverine's body, and just the way her feet are sort of daintily and awkwardly crossed, the way she has her hand kind of bent, and the little eyes too wide facial expression. This is not a posture or a position or an expression that Laura would ever have, and it's just so wonderfully, perfectly done. One of many, many examples, but I think this one was our favorite.
Also, Gabby has bunny pajamas,
which is pretty great. That is it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, but you think it would be way better without our faces, check out our podcast, Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at explainthexmen.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week?
So this week is a really weird episode. It's kind of the end of an era. The X-Men effectively disband, with some of them disappearing and some of them dying, and it's the beginning of a strange experiment by Chris Claremont. Does it work? Does it not? You be the judge, but you should listen to our episode, and then we can tell you things, and then you can be the judge.
Well, we'll also judge. We judge things.
Sometimes, it's true.
It's the thing we do. Speaking of things we judge and find awesome, come see us at Rose City Comic Con. Details were in the intro. I'll tell you again. Right now, very fast, it is August 11th and 12th, Portland, Oregon. We're doing a live panel and a party on Saturday. Party doesn't require a convention badge, and it is all ages, and you can find details for that stuff on our website, or you will be able to within the next week. It's not up quite yet.
Indeed.
The podcast, the video reviews, our convention appearances, and everything at jayandmiles.com. ExplainTheXmen.com.
Both, actually.
They redirect. Everything at ExplainTheXmen.com is brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. That includes reviews, recaps, visual companions to every episode, and much more. We're an entirely listener-supported project. Those are the folks who let us stay on the air and stay entirely ad-free. We love them. We would love for you to join them. You can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it.
In the meantime, we shall see you in podcast land, video review land, and hopefully Rose City land before too very long. Take care. And there you go, 2 weeks, 4 issues. Truck in the background.